Welcome back. Through 128 photos, the Bronx Documentary Center highlights the United States following 9/11 with their latest exhibition, Look at the USA. BDC Founder and Executive Director Michael Kamber joins me for discussion on this exhibit. Michael, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks. It's good to be here.
So for those who aren't familiar, can you start off just telling us a little bit about your organization, the Bronx Documentary Center?
Yeah, we're a nonprofit gallery and education space. We do about 10 exhibitions a year on photography, and we have a big education program, mostly for teenagers and middle schoolers. We've got about 100 students, and we also do some programs for adults as well.
Now, Look at the USA is the latest exhibition at the Bronx Documentary Center, and the exhibit will focus on America post 9/11 while examining wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. Can you tell me a little bit more about what viewers can expect to see?
Yeah, I think one of the things that's unique about the show is it's really a history going back almost 20 years to right after 9/11. And Peter Van Achtermel, the photographer, has really worked all over the world. I mean, he worked in dozens and dozens of countries. He covered Iraq and Afghanistan, as you say, and he's also covered other conflicts in the Middle East. But he spent a lot of time looking at the migration crisis, migrants being forced out by conflict, by global warming, by many things, moving into Europe, coming to the United States, being resettled in the U.S. So there's a whole list of things. He's looked a lot at Black Lives Matter. He followed the demonstrations and protests for many months, Black Lives Matter, and he also covered the election of Biden and Trump. So there's just a huge, really recent history, like a 20-year history of the United States. It's really fascinating.
The BDC often puts a lens on America, often showing some raw and harsh realities in our country. What draws you to those types of stories?
Well, we try to find the right balance. I mean, we try to show positive stories as well. We show a lot of stories from the Bronx, but we think what's going on around the world is of interest to our community. You know, they there's American foreign policy that emanates from our communities and affects our communities, and we think we've had many discussions here. We use the photography really as a jumping off point, and people come in and have discussions and debates about this, and hopefully become better informed about things that are really important to America and to our community here in the Bronx.
So I'm happy that you kind of brought up debates because this exhibit explores crucial social and political issues. What were some of the highlighted issues that were documented?
I think there was a lot of really interesting work on poverty. I mean, Peter Van Achtermel, the photographer, went really deep, digging into poverty in cities across the United States, in rural areas, rural poverty as well. And I'm just looking at the show right now out in front of me. So I think he spent a lot of time on immigration. I think he spent a lot of time on racial issues and racial tensions and racism in the United States. Really, really crucial issues to where this country's been and where it's going. So I think he tackled all kinds of stuff. He tackled, he was at the January 6th sort of assault on the Capitol. First time in American history where protesters have overrun the U.S. Capitol. So the show is just full of evidence of so many different key moments in American history.
These photographs span from 2006 to 2021. How have you seen these conversations around these issues change over time?
Personally, I'd say there's a lot more emphasis today, a lot more emphasis on race. There's more emphasis on poverty today, I'm seeing. Um, Obviously, the right, uh, you know, former President Trump and the right has been really focused on immigration and trying to halt immigration into this country. And one of the interesting things is this exhibition also looks a lot at Europe, and there are similar movements in France and Germany. There's sort of a strong anti-immigration backlash that's built in Europe, and Peter examines that backlash. He examines the plight of the migrants who are basically just trying to survive and need a refuge. So I think there has been an evolution in some of these discussions, particularly, of course, since George Floyd. I think the conversation about race has just become really forefront, and previously in America, it wasn't something we talked about as much.
I feel like I agree. And although I wasn't in those conversations during 2006. I feel like we talk about it a lot more, which kind of leads me to this question. Do you think an exhibit like this would be around in 2006? Or maybe some of the other exhibits that you guys put on, do you think it would have been received the same in 2006?
Well, that's a good question. Yeah, that's a tough one. I think, I mean, we've always tried to do challenging exhibitions, and we're focused on discussion and debate. We don't all have to agree with each other. We've always done challenging stuff, but I think certainly, you know, I think race in particular and a lot of issues around poverty, we're seeing, well, that's something in America's past, and people don't believe that anymore. They believe that it's here and now, it's forefront, and people want to discuss it, find resolutions, work together, so and hold people to account.
What has the response been like from the community?
We've had a great response. Mostly we've had, well, the opening was packed. Last week we had over 100 school children come to visit the show. So from middle schools here in the Bronx. And they were fascinated by the images. They asked a lot of questions. There were so many things they didn't know about. So, every exhibition is a chance for us to learn, for me to learn, for the children to learn. They came, they didn't know about the conflicts. They were fascinated to learn about American foreign policy, issues at home, here in the U.S. There were some really good, some 12 and 13-year-olds. They asked some great questions.
So I want to touch on that aspect of age because I think of, college students or young adults interacting with these types of issues. But I think that there has been an arena for people who are even way younger to kind of join in this conversation. How do you tackle teaching a really young child about some dark stuff in our history or stuff that's happening even right now?
Yeah. Well, we don't show, when we get the younger children, we don't show them any violent issues. We cover any photos of violence we cover because obviously we don't want to traumatize the kids or upset them. But, the kids today are way more aware than when I was growing up. So they know a fair amount, they know about the war in Ukraine. They know um, about, about a fair number of social issues, and they ask really smart questions about it. So we're non-ideological at the Bronx Documentary Center. We're not Republican or Democrat. We're not here to tell you what to think. We're here to show you what has happened. We have accurate captions on the wall. We have discussions with the photographers, and even at a young age, we let the kids make up their own minds. So we're not here to tell them what to think.
That's amazing. Now, how long will this actually be up for?
The show is up through June 26th. We're open Friday, Saturday, and Sunday in the afternoons, or by appointment if somebody needs to come at a different time. So but we'll be here through almost through the end of June. So there's a lot of time to come to see it.
Now, when you're covering sensitive issues, do you have any fear of how it will be received, especially in this day and age? Because although people have become more comfortable talking about issues of racism, I feel like the opposite has also happened where people are more comfortable talking about things that they don't like in regards to race and religion and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
how do you handle that?
It's a tough environment out there. It's a tough environment because no matter what you do, you can be attacked on social media. It used to be people had to come and talk to you to your face. Now they can just, slander you on the internet. So that's troubling, but there's nothing we can do. We can't hide from that. We've got to do the work, get the work out there. One of the beauties of America is there's freedom of speech here. So everybody doesn't have to like what we do. Everybody doesn't have to agree, but hopefully they'll come and they'll look at the work and have a discussion about it.
Now, I want to learn a little bit more about the BDC in general. I know that you kind of interact with generations, well, different generations. So you talked about children, stuff with seniors. Can you tell us a little bit more about those programs that are catered to them?
Sure. Yeah, our children's programs are really focused on photography and writing. Our kids do a lot of writing. They learn to do research. They learn to do the 5 Ws of journalism, who, when, what, where, why, to check things for accuracy. Uh, we teach some media literacy, so they know the difference between the New York Post and the New York Times and other sources of information, which I think is really crucial in America today. With our high schoolers, there's a big focus on college applications, college readiness, SAT. We just did SAT prep this weekend. We help with financial aid, all those types of things. So we teach them a lot of journalism and photography, but we're also preparing them to go on and be successful in life, even though, we don't expect many of them to be photographers, but we hope that our education helps them in some positive way. Um, And then with the senior programs, we work with different senior centers around the Bronx. And that's a lot of that is field trip based. So we go with the seniors on different field trips around New York City, the Bronx Botanical Garden, different museums, Central Park, etc. And really getting them out and giving them sort of access to photograph and learn about photography and visit parts of the city that, you know, a lot of seniors don't have a lot of mobility. They don't have cars, so it's hard for them to get around. So we really try to get them out as often as possible into the city.
Now, I really like to learn a little bit more about your relationship with Peter, because I know you guys worked together before, and I actually covered that event. It was a Trump Revolution event, which that was my first time seeing that kind of exhibit. What inspires you to continue those relationships with some of these photographers?
Well, you know, we really feel like photography and photojournalism is at the forefront of, it's really at the forefront of American history. And I think if you look back at key moments in the last, 100 years, a lot of what you're looking at is photographs, documentary photos and photojournalism, news photographers that were there on the front lines. I worked with Peter in Iraq. We both covered the war in Iraq for many years. So I've known him a long time, and he's really giving testimony. And you can look at his photos and say, again, you can draw your own conclusions, but the jumping off point is the evidence. Peter was right there. He was right on the front lines. He's showing you what happened on any given day. And I just think that's it's still important. I always say I got to New York in the 1980s and people were saying, oh, photography's dead. It's not important anymore, but it's always important and it always keeps coming back.
Can you let people know how they can actually support your organization?
Sure. Yeah, you can go to www.bronxdoc.org. It's BRONXDOC.org. We're always looking for volunteers. We've got events. We've got a great photo library. We've got, we need mentors sometimes. So there's a whole number of things that we need help with here. Of course, if you're wealthy, we're always looking for donations.
All right.
But really what we need mostly is volunteers and people just coming, bringing friends, bringing family, and helping to get these discussions going.
All right. Michael, thank you so much for joining me.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
We'll be right back with more Open BxRx Tuesday.